The story begins with a man from a clan that was destroyed by the demonic sect, seeking revenge. Under the bright moonlight, he sneaks into the demonic sect's base, silently eliminating the guards one by one. He then drags one of the guards' bodies and confronts their leader, known as the Heavenly Demon. The man introduces himself as Kong Wunshin and declares that he will kill the Heavenly Demon with his own hands tonight. Wunshin then leaps toward the Heavenly Demon, attempting to unleash a lightning fist attack, but the Heavenly Demon counters with blood-tied art, leaving a scratch across Wunshin's face. Undeterred, Wunshin launches another fierce attack in an effort to overwhelm him. This time, Wunshin's strike lands, sending the Heavenly Demon crashing into a wall. With no other option, the Heavenly Demon takes out a jar of elixir and drinks it. Witnessing this, Wunshin grows uneasy. He knows the elixir will trigger a dangerous transformation known as demonic chi deviation. Moments later, the Heavenly Demon emits a powerful chi that shines with intense light. Suddenly, he reappears beside Wunshin, attempting to end his life. But to his shock, a barrier forms around Wunshin, deflecting the attack. A great mage appears on the scene just in time. The mage apologizes for being late and asks Wunshin, "Is this the nemesis you were talking about?" The scene then shifts to someone reading a Muram novel, wondering why a random high-level mage from a different world suddenly appeared out of nowhere. His name is Jin Seowoon, a 23-year-old who was discharged from military service 6 months ago and is now preparing to return to college. Like many others nearing the end of their service, Seowoon had a well-structured plan: earn certifications, prepare for university, and catch up on everything he couldn't study during his time in the military. But after rejoining society, he realized just how many fun things he had missed. With a bit of money left in his account, Seowoon debated whether to find a part-time job. Instead, he walked into an internet cafe and ended up playing a game called Loyal Ground for 10 hours straight. It had been a casual game he played occasionally during leave, but now, after being discharged, he began playing seriously, and within 3 months, he ranked among the top 10 players. He even made a bit of money from local tournaments occasionally held at internet cafes. The game works like this: 100 players drop from a plane onto a battlefield. It's a survival game where players must scavenge weapons scattered around the map and fight until only one remains. Seowoon is exceptionally good at it, and his teammates always rely on his guidance, whether it's when to farm, rotate, or seek the safe zone first. This time, only 3 players remain: Seowoon and 2 enemies. One of the enemies enters a building, spots some loot, and assumes Seowoon hasn't been there yet. What he doesn't realize is that Seowoon is hiding just behind the door. A moment later, the second enemy hears a sudden commotion inside the building, followed by a system notification: your teammate has been eliminated. Realizing too late that Seowoon had been lying in wait, the last enemy tries to flee, but Seowoon catches and eliminates him as well. Victory! Seowoon's friend laughs, thanking him for carrying the match. Moments later, Seowoon receives a message from his mom letting him know she has transferred his academy fees and added a little extra for him. He thanks her, then turns to his friend and says he won't be playing anymore starting tomorrow. He needs to start attending an English academy. Seowoon always feels a pang of guilt whenever he sees messages from his mom. He's been living like this for months now. Back at home, Seowoon lies in bed, scrolling through his phone. He reads a news article about mysterious individuals appearing abroad, claiming to possess supernatural powers. They're calling themselves players. But just as he's reading, the page suddenly disappears. "Guess I'll just sleep," he mumbles. The next morning, Seowoon walks down the street while reading a message from his friend asking for help with a clan war. Seowoon hesitates, wondering if he should help one last time. But before he can decide, a blinding light flashes behind him, engulfing his body and leaving only his bag lying on the sidewalk. When Seowoon regained consciousness, he heard loud noises around him. He saw people fighting and speaking in different languages. Noticing that they wore various outfits and wielded weapons, he wondered why there were so many cosplayers around. He also saw people using magic and began to wonder if he was just dreaming. Seowoon then stood up and questioned where he was. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, stating that 100 players had been detected and the system was initializing. Another notification followed, announcing that language synchronization was now 100% complete. After that, everyone suddenly began speaking the same language. Meanwhile, Seowoon noticed a mage confronting another person. The mage then used his ability to attack, striking the target with a lightning bolt. To their surprise, the target felt nothing. Witnessing this made Seowoon think that this was too realistic to be a dream. Moments later, the system announced that the game was about to begin. The difficulty level was set to easy, and players needed to make it into the top 90. The designated map was the King Kingdom's capital, with rewards for the top 10 and above. In the waiting room, attacks between players were neutralized. The system then provided a brief explanation for those accessing Cloyd Survival for the first time. The game would run for 100 days, with each day causing the map to become slightly more limited. If players ventured outside the restricted area, they could face severe consequences. The game would continue until only one survivor remained. Once the game ended or a player was eliminated, they would return to their original world. Players who failed to make it into the top 90 would not be able to participate in Cloyd Survival again. Soon, players would be transported to their desired locations with the help of Argas Gaze. They could obtain items at these locations to help them secure a spot in the top 90. After learning about Cloyd Survival, Seowoon was surprised and wondered if he was dreaming about loyal ground. He thought that even if this were a dream, amidst all these absurd humans, he would probably die. Even if it was just a dream, he didn't want to die. Suddenly, a big guy with a sword called out to Seowoon, mocking his messy hair. He asked why Seowoon kept looking around and where he was from. Seowoon didn't respond, which made the guy angry. With only 3 seconds left before the game started, Seowoon smiled, causing the guy to become even more irritated. The guy asked why Seowoon was laughing. With just 1 second remaining, Seowoon flipped the guy the middle finger, thinking that with his knowledge of log abilities, he could easily defeat people like him and survive. The game began. Cloyd Survival, Day 1, and all the players started to descend into the game. Seowoon noticed that players were landing in crowded areas where many items were scattered. He thought that, according to the game, these crowded areas did indeed have more items, but he figured it would be safer to start on the outskirts. After choosing a location, Seowoon descended to the ground and felt a wave of motion sickness. He realized he needed to find a house to enter as soon as possible. However, a sense of unease crept over him. Because of the motion sickness, he hadn't been able to see who else had landed with him. If he encountered any enemies without a weapon, he was done for. After closing the door, Seowoon wondered if that sword-wielding bastard from earlier had followed him. He regretted provoking him, thinking it was a mistake. Hearing no sounds, Seowoon decided to search the house for any useful items. He soon found a heavy crossbow, which was a bit too heavy for him, but still better than nothing. As soon as he equipped it, the instructions on how to use it naturally flowed into his mind. Seowoon decided to test it by firing an arrow at the wall, and the result shocked him. He thought this could be really useful if he learned how to use it properly. He continued to search but couldn't find anything else useful. The map was vast, which he considered a good thing. If he didn't run into any enemies at the start, he could farm in peace. Upon entering another house, Seowoon found a small healing scroll that could heal injuries if the scroll was ripped. After learning about the scroll, Seowoon decided to gather more recovery items and hoped to find an item bag. His eyes then caught something on a bookshelf. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a Black Star Leader's martial arts book that allowed the user to project dark energy through their fingers. The system asked Seowoon if he wanted to learn the book, and when Seowoon selected yes, the book began to float, shining brightly before slowly fading away. After that, Seowoon noticed a sudden change in the thickness of the skin on his hands. Curious, he grabbed a fork, threw it against the wall, and observed the result. With a smile, Seowoon thought to himself that he had just learned a martial art. Things were starting to look good for Seowoon. The presence of martial arts books likely meant that magic books existed too. Regardless, he was now certain, Cloyd Survival and Loyal Ground were the same game. Having searched the entire house, Seowoon decided it was time to move on. The sun had already risen while he was farming, so he needed to find a place to hide. Up ahead, he spotted the only house with its lights still on. He figured that either a rare item was hidden inside, or someone was already there. Seowoon quietly entered and cautiously checked the first floor. It was silent, he didn't hear a thing. He then moved to the second floor, where he saw a lit lantern. Suspicious that it might be a trap, he noticed a room beside the lantern and broke down its door. After checking inside, he found no one there. Relieved, Seowoon searched the room and discovered a ring, the Ring of Strength. When equipped, it increased the user's strength by 20. As soon as he put it on, he was amazed. His body felt much lighter, and he could barely feel the weight of the crossbow anymore. Afterward, he returned to the first floor to search more thoroughly. There, he found a subspace ring, which allowed the user to store items in a subspace when equipped. Using the subspace felt strange at first, but it was incredibly convenient. He no longer needed to carry everything around like a bag. Seowoon couldn't help but think how amazing it would be to have something like this in real life. Seowoon wondered if there had still been 0 eliminations, so he checked the interface for a kill log. Upon checking, he saw that only 1 person had been eliminated. He originally planned to keep farming until only 90 participants remained, but instead, he had managed to search several houses and gather a large number of consumable items. He was lucky enough to find many hidden weapons to use alongside his Black Star chi palms. Seowoon debated whether he should start moving or stay put until sunrise. He remembered the strong individuals he saw back in the waiting room, likely now roaming through the darkness. At his current level, Seowoon knew he stood no chance against them. Thinking there might be fewer people out at night, he decided to visit one more location before the sun came up. While walking outside, he suddenly heard a terrifying growl from a werewolf and quickly hid. However, another werewolf spotted him and tried to smash him. Fortunately, Seowoon dodged just in time. Believing this was a PvP game, he hadn't expected monsters to appear. He ran, trying to escape, and found a house up ahead. He rushed inside and slammed the door shut. Peeking through a crack, he noticed the werewolves sniffing around, likely tracking his scent. He realized he had to take the initiative. Aiming his crossbow at one of the werewolves, he fired and eliminated it. Now, only 1 remained. The remaining werewolf broke through the door and slashed Seowoon's face. As it lunged at him, Seowoon fired another arrow, but the werewolf blocked it with its arm. Then it leapt at him again, and for a moment, Seowoon wondered if this was how he would be eliminated. But he didn't give up. He activated his subspace, drew a weapon, and unleashed the Black Star chi palms to destroy the creature. With a serious expression, Seowoon declared, "I can't afford to lose to a mere underling." After defeating the werewolves, a bag dropped to the ground. Seowoon opened it but was disappointed to find only a bottle of water and some jerky. He sighed, thinking he could just hunt for food later anyway. While eating, Seowoon scanned his surroundings and spotted a piece of armor. He tried it on, but it was too big for him, at first. To his surprise, the armor automatically adjusted to fit his body. Once equipped, it significantly increased his resistance to fire and wind magic. Amazed by its benefits, Seowoon continued searching the area. As he checked the tables, his knee bumped into something invisible. Curious, he kicked around and wondered if it might be a hidden item. He picked it up and discovered it was a night cloak. By equipping the night cloak, he gained the ability to blend perfectly into the darkness when standing still. While hidden, he couldn't be detected by magic, and any sounds he made were completely suppressed. With this, Seowoon knew he could avoid anyone he encountered at night and survive for as long as necessary. While walking through a random area, Seowoon suddenly heard a noise and instinctively went into hiding. Peering out, he spotted an injured man stumbling forward, gasping for breath. The man didn't look strong. Seowoon figured he could take him out easily. He raised his bow, aiming at the stranger, but hesitated. He tried to convince himself, he's not a real person. It's just a game. Before he could decide, a burst of magical fire shot through the air and struck the injured man, instantly eliminating him. Seowoon flinched, wondering if the man had actually died. But then he noticed, there was no corpse, only a chest left behind. That confirmed it. They were definitely inside a game. As he pondered where the magic had come from, a figure walked directly in front of him. Seowoon held his breath. Thanks to his night cloak, the person didn't notice him at all. He watched silently as the figure approached the chest, checking what the eliminated player had dropped. A chilling realization struck Seowoon. I could be next. He understood now. Every hesitation was an opportunity for someone else to climb the ranks. If he wanted to survive, he couldn't afford to second-guess himself. An arrow was fired at the man who was looting the chest, but fortunately, he had an invisible barrier protecting him. Seowoon continued to shoot arrows at the barrier, not stopping until it finally shattered. The man grew anxious as his barrier was destroyed and began to wonder where Seowoon was hiding. The force of the impact created a strong gust of wind that lifted Seowoon's cloak, revealing his location. The man quickly attempted to cast a fire spell, but before he could release it, Seowoon's dagger pierced his forehead, eliminating him instantly. Seowoon couldn't believe he had won. A chest dropped from the eliminated player, and he rushed to loot it as quickly as possible before leaving. While searching through the chest, he obtained Escrow's necklace, a pure gold necklace that signifies membership in Escrow's magic society. He also acquired a circle stone, a magical item that allows the user to engrave a mana circle around their heart, enabling them to use mana. Once activated, the user can learn the magic associated with that circle. Determined to use the circle stone, Seowoon searched for a safe place. Once he found one, he entered and prepared to activate the item. The system warned him that using the stone would render him motionless for 3 hours, during which he would be unable to perform any actions or use items. It also cautioned that he might experience pain as the circle formed. Seowoon endured the intense pain, suppressing the urge to scream, and spent the next 3 hours in agony. Afterward, upon checking his status, he discovered that he could now hold 2 jobs simultaneously, and for the first time, he had a mana stat. Realizing that 2 players had already died, Seowoon checked the remaining number of survivors. The count had dropped significantly. That's when he noticed a player named Nam Sagwang was on a killing spree. Seowoon hoped he wouldn't run into this Nam Sagwang person. Suddenly, he realized that if things kept going this way, it might actually be possible for him to break into the top 10. Before the game started, they had announced a reward for players who reached that rank. Seowoon wondered what it could be. Determined, he decided it was time to finish up and start moving. He could definitely feel a surge of power growing within him. Opening his subspace, he took out the magic book he had looted the day before. The system asked if he wanted to use it. When he pressed the "Yes" button, the magic book slowly vanished, transferring its spell directly into his mind. Seowoon then attempted to cast a magic wind ball. At first, he was disappointed. The wind balls appeared tiny and unimpressive. He casually released one behind him, but to his surprise, it caused a massive explosion upon hitting the wall. It was far stronger than it looked. He figured it would definitely come in handy. However, after using that much magic, Seowoon suddenly felt drained. As time passed, a restricted zone began appearing on the map, and its boundary gradually shrank. He decided to keep farming while staying near the edge of the zone. Meanwhile, an old martial artist was observing Seowoon from a distance. He found Seowoon intriguing, so he continued following him to study his movements. Half a day later, Seowoon came across a house with several open chests scattered outside. As he stood there, he suddenly sensed a presence and instinctively cast his magic wind balls toward the door. The spell destroyed it instantly. Seowoon paused, wondering if it was just the wind playing tricks on him. He was sure he'd felt someone nearby, yet saw no one. Looking more closely through the hole, he noticed fresh blood drops on the floor. Someone injured was there. Seowoon figured they had to be strong to have survived this long. With that thought, he turned around and pretended to leave. As he walked away, his image began to fade. The man who had been watching him cautiously emerged from hiding, relieved that he'd reacted quickly, otherwise, he might have been killed. Still, he believed he could have taken care of Seowoon easily if he hadn't been injured. He approached one of the chests to loot it, but before he could react, an arrow pierced through his head, eliminating him instantly. From the shadows, Seowoon quietly thanked the man for showing himself so quickly, then remarked that he'd farm for a bit before heading to the edge of the restricted zone. Suddenly, the old man appeared behind Seowoon and said, "You're pretty skilled." Seowoon panicked, realizing he'd let his guard down. But the old man quickly reassured him, saying there was no need to be afraid. He only wanted to ask a few questions. At that moment, Seowoon noticed something different about this old man. He wasn't like anyone else Seowoon had encountered so far. The old man asked Seowoon if he had participated in this kind of play before. He shared that he had been observing Seowoon for a while and noticed how quickly he adapted. Seowoon replied that it was his first time being brought there, but he had played a similar game in the world he came from. The old man was surprised by Seowoon's response and asked if the game was similar to what they were currently doing. He then requested Seowoon to explain the game he was referring to. Seowoon responded that he believed they could be easily ambushed in that area. Sensing that the conversation might take a while, the old man suggested they continue elsewhere. He then grabbed Seowoon and moved at an incredible speed while carrying him. At that moment, Seowoon had no idea what kind of consequences their encounter would bring. The old man brought Seowoon to the top of a tree, and they continued their conversation there. Seowoon explained that his world was a place of highly advanced civilization. The old man said he now understood how Seowoon was able to adapt to the game so quickly. He then revealed that he had been watching Seowoon since the moment they were dropped into that place. He added that he originally intended to enjoy the fresh mountain air for the next 100 days, but he became intrigued by Seowoon's actions. His curiosity about why they were brought there ultimately led him to initiate the conversation. Seowoon explained that the game he mentioned was just a form of entertainment, meant to be played for fun, not for real danger, and certainly not with actual death. So, when it came to the motives of the supernatural beings capable of abducting people from another world, he admitted there was no way for him to understand their intentions. However, Seowoon added that he was certain this game would serve as a significant opportunity for someone. He explained that dying in the game didn't mean dying for real. Upon death, a player would be given a rank and rewarded accordingly. Seowoon believed the rewards consisted of the items obtained within the game, not just the gear carried on one's body, but also the skills and martial arts learned during gameplay. He was sure that someone like the old man wouldn't need those rewards, but for people struggling in life, such abilities could be life-changing. To Seowoon, the old man seemed like a martial arts master. He was certain the man had followers in his own world. That was a far cry from someone like Seowoon, who didn't feel particularly useful in his own. The old man laughed after hearing Seowoon's earnest thoughts. As Seowoon shared tips and tricks that might be useful in this world, and listened to stories about the old man's homeland, the night quickly gave way to morning. The old man then said that since he had learned so much about the game from Seowoon, he wanted to know if there was anything he could do in return. Seowoon asked if it would be possible for him to learn some of the old man's martial arts, because he genuinely wanted to survive until the end. The old man replied that he wouldn't say it was impossible, but Seowoon had to be prepared for the worst. And by the worst, he meant death. Looking Seowoon in the eye, he asked, "So, what will it be?"